And we're back. Game number 3 is already in full swing. So without further ado, let me introduce the rest of my crew. This is Peter Svidler. We will jump into the action, I believe.
Look at this.
Big excitement,
Yeah.
another D3 Spanish.
And another D3 Spanish, and finally we're back to 2 boards, hopefully, for the remainder of the broadcast. And this is somewhat similar to what they had in game 11, but with the inclusion of the pawn on b4, because black played knight a5 and bishop b6. So it seems like the same position, but it's not exactly the same position.
Hang on. But knight a5, this is normal. Bishop a2, bishop e6, and here was b4 instead of d4.
Yeah, this is game 2.
d4 is game 2.
Yeah, this is game 2, and instead of this, Sergei played b4, knight c6, knight d5.
But after b4, you could have exchanged the bishops, right?
Yeah, it obviously is an option, but I guess he felt knight c6 is more interesting. Knight d5, knight d4. This has been blitzed out by both players, and white is now thinking. And yeah, compared to game 11, there's a pawn on b4 here, and the bishop is on a2 and not on b3.
Let's explain that mainly for me, because I don't fully grasp the differences yet. This is game 11.
Yeah,
different move or a similar position.
And this is game 11, and white took on d4, and as we were describing, white has 2 options there, take on e7 and take on f6. I think he probably holds true for the position they have on the board right now. I think the options are very, very similar here, and you need to evaluate in whose favor the inclusion of the move b2, b4 is. My initial feeling is that it should favor black, actually, because it gives black targets to base his counterplay against.
You mean a5 in the
c5,
distant future?
c5, c4
Could be
becomes
a
a lot easier, and a5 definitely becomes part of black's plans everywhere. Although actually here maybe white might be obliged to take on e7, because in those positions before is knight e4, e4, knight e7, queen e7, bishop g5.
Knight g5 has been played, so we have embarked upon an unexpected journey. What's going on here? Knight d5, we have to calculate.
That actually is a major difference with the other line, because knight takes b3 is there's nobody on b3. So that is a major difference between the position in game 11 and the position here. Bishop g4, knight f6 loses a piece. Bishop takes d5, e5. You have to wonder where the knight on d4 will go. So issues for black. I'm not sure if they are serious issues or not, but here
you have to start jumping around.
Yeah.
Something's a little.
And the knight goes from g5 to e4 here as well, which is, I think.
If I go, let's say here, maybe?
Yeah, knight d7 probably is a good move here. Yeah, this looks like the sensible start from black, but I'm wondering about knight takes h7, but I probably cannot make this work, right? Knight h7, king h7, and now some combination of queen h5 check and c3. But it probably doesn't work, because I have knight h6 here as black. And yeah, probably not in time to do this with white, right?
Don't ask me. I'm still shell-shocked from the last game where Magnus Carlsen did not manage to win a very, very good position. And we will have to see how much that has affected him.
Yeah, that was very, very uncharacteristic from him in general, although somewhat characteristic in this match. In this match, this is not the first opportunity he missed.
But arguably the biggest.
Yeah.
Like rapid and so on, but that was very winning.
No, 10 minutes against more or less increment and a position which you can win in a number of ways, pretty much. So yeah, huge opportunity missed there.
Yeah, your idea doesn't work because the knight escapes.
I was about to say that, yeah. So after knight d7, white needs to play something quieter. If you go knight f3...
That feels not
takes
f5,
bishop g5 or bishop g5 or f5 and a5 later. Knight might go to b6, might go return to f6. Yeah, and if knight e4, we can probably knight e4 might be the most critical move here. Yeah, but maybe I can play f5. Knight g2, I guess, or even
showing off. No, I don't think this makes any sense. DC,
I can take this. I can take this. So probably knight g2, I guess, because knight g3, f4, f3 was kind of the point of my idea.
Now?
Yeah, it gets stuck. It gets stuck, and it's a very serious issue for black.
If you go f4, you might not lose the knight, but you lose the positional battle for the light squares.
Yeah, c3, knight f5, knight probably returns to f3, then we go rook e1, bishop b1, d4, hopefully.
This looks very bad for black.
Yeah, if all of these moves actually occur on the board, black is probably lost, so it's very strategically risky.
Carlsen taking his time here after knight g5. A lot of horsing around from both sides. Let's see what the world champion comes up with.
Yeah, bishop d5, e5, knight d7 is not forced. You can maybe start immediate counterplay on the queen side here. Maybe we mentioned the move a6, a5. It's playable even here. c3, knight f5. That knight generally goes to h4 and then g6 in many of... I mean, this is a somewhat typical structure, actually. It occurs in a lot of anti-marshals and 6d3 variations. And
this looks decent, but I don't think I've played the best moves for white.
Yeah. No, in general, white's biggest and only serious issue here is the bishop on a2, which will be blocked in by its own pawns on d5 and d3. So it's a very interesting, strategically complicated position, and I guess both players should be reasonably happy with this, because Sergei, I think, is still in his preparation. He blitzed out before, and even knight g5 was played very quickly, so it feels like he is still very much...
So knight g5 you don't blitz out if you haven't seen this position before?
Probably not, yeah. Probably not. And can Black just play bishop d7 here, I wonder? But then maybe, like, yeah, c3 or knight e7 and f4, many things become possible. c3, knight e6 I wasn't all that unhappy about, but maybe even here f4 might be dangerous. But also just snapping on e7 and going f4 looks very attractive strategically.
Yeah. Bishop d5 has been played, ed blitzed out, no surprises there.
Yeah, other moves lose pieces. So. And here, yes, black obviously has a choice.
Pretty non-standard situation, though. At least it's a structure you never see from any regular opening. I understand you get it here by doing these mutual subtleties and this back and forth, this knight a5, bishop a2, bishop e6. But in the textbooks, we don't often cover a structure with double white d pawns and a pawn on b4 and a bishop on a2.
No, this is a
knight d7 on the board.
Yeah, this is a quirky version of this. I've seen this structure before, but not with this precise pawn situation on the queen side. Knight e4 by far the best move here.
Yeah, knight f3 doesn't make sense because you exchange black's worry. Yeah. Knight h3 is just a bad square, so yeah, knight e4
already played, and yeah.
Now Carlsen has a choice. f5 is what we looked at earlier, knight d2, and we weren't that impressed with this position because we're giving up all these juicy light squares.
Yeah, this feels extremely risky. This really does feel like you are tempting fate a great deal by opting for this. I think generally black wants to play f5 in these structures, but not until he secured the knight on d4. So once again,
how do you do that? You don't have time to.
Knight f5 is generally met by g3 actually, because knight h4, knight g6 is a very useful restructuring black normally aims for here. So either immediately.
Play f5.
Okay, so we will get something.
Knight d2 also blitzed out.
And here f4 is the only move that actually saves the knight. So he will now play f4. He's not gonna.
Very committal. Do you think he's slightly steaming from last game? He blitzed out f4.
I think he is steamed up from game 2. Yeah. The decisions he is taking right now, and also the speed with which he is taking them, does appear as if he is still sort of reliving the position he had in game 2. And I mean, many people would. I mean, it would require an inhuman effort to just completely clear your mind from what happened in the previous game.
No, it is very human, but it could go very wrong too.
Sure. No, this is a very, very committal decision, and as mentioned, if white manages to stabilize and open up the center with his bishops, in particular the bishop on b1, if white manages to play c3, g4, black's king side will just fall apart. In many cases, and
currently f3 might be a bit of a threat, right? So you probably want to kick.
Yeah, I think c3 or knight f3, and I don't really see any reason to offer black any exchanges here. Although with the pawn on f4, you can go knight f3 as well, because your bishop g5 idea is no longer really there for black.
Let's look at this though.
Yeah,
this though. Watch your th, Jan. It's what my English teacher always used to say. So sorry, Mr. Schultz. Knight f3.
Well, you need to start some counterplay straight.
Go for it.
Yeah, let's say a5. We go rook e1, I think. I would like to take with the c pawn, but I'm not sure making much progress here. Yeah, this is
Some hope. This knight has some squares.
yeah. Bishop b2 knight b6 in particular is a plan for black here. So maybe it works out tempo-wise, but black needs to be very, very fast.
And you mentioned the move knight f3 instead of c3. But if I get rid of this dude, I understand my pieces are not very impressive, but neither is your a2 bishop, right? Once again,
Yeah. No, this is not
doesn't
unplayable.
look
This
too
is
bad.
not unplayable for black at all. I mean, f5, f4 is not a huge improvement on your king side, but with the bishop on a2 still far, far away from action, you maybe can play like this and still feel okay. But yeah, from a spectator standpoint, I think this is all very happy developments because this is going to be very sharp potentially.
The gloves are off.
Yeah.
Do you think people should wear gloves during chess games, like for the first 2 games? Because it's much harder to move the pieces. I once had a photo shoot, because I'm a celebrity, let's not pretend I'm not. During the Thailand Open, very prestigious tournament, which I play every year. And they made us wear Thai boxing gloves while playing chess. Not easy to move a piece.
Yeah, there were a lot of funky photo shoots during that tournament, I remember that. Also somewhat surprising, people were forced to Thai box, I think.
Yeah, they didn't tell us it was going to be a topless photo shoot. It's bad enough they make you get up incredibly early, like 11 a.m. or some insane time.
I feel so sorry for you.
I'm joking. But yeah, then they told us, okay, it's Thai boxing, but you're not supposed to wear any shirts. People don't wear shirts during Thai boxing. And I would have liked to get this information like 1 year before the tournament to get in shape for stuff like that. Yeah. Well, there, a lot of peer pressure. Who can say no? But it wasn't pretty. Back to the game.
Yeah,
is this pretty?
Back to the game, yeah. I'm trying to figure out how I feel about putting knight on e4. Because it supports the... in terms of supporting d3, d4, it's a lot weaker. But it's also such a nice square for the knight, and I'm in 2 minds about this. I'm also very unsure as to what black wants to do. Like, what are black's next 3 moves if white slowly improves his position? So you think he will be playing on the king side here?
It's actually 4 moves, right? I was trying to find a checkmate since you gave me 3. But yeah, I think so. Well, yeah, the alternative is, of course, to open the second flank, which we've mentioned.
Yeah, a5. Yeah, a5 is a move you can include in most positions here, unless white immediately does something on the queen side himself. But that's unlikely. I think playing a3, a4 here potentially stops a5, but it's a waste of a tempo. And maybe it doesn't. Maybe it doesn't even stop a5 exactly. Yeah.
It's very tense at first sight. Well, the eye test says this is bad for black. But it's not that simple, is it?
No.
The eye test says you get knight f3, rook e1, bishop b1, d4. You get punished for
that was my initial assessment, that black will just get completely rolled over in the center and his position will crumble. But maybe that's not all that simple. And once again, Sergei is, although not to the extent that it happened in the previous 2 games, he is slightly behind on the clock already, despite getting the first theoretical shot in. I think knight g5 he played very fast and Magnus started thinking, but by now this position already consumed some time, but they're still perfectly comfortable. 21 minutes for Magnus and somewhat less than 18 for Sergei.
Also, being the armchair general, do you say armchair psychologist as well? If you don't say it, you should. That I am. I have a feeling that if Sergei thinks here for 5 minutes, it might allow Magnus to refocus and slightly calm down from the last game, think about what's actually happening in this game, what his ideas are.
I don't know if he feels like that personally right now, but I think he would very much benefit from a period of contemplation here, which would be
94 on the board.
Yeah, allowed by white, giving some time.
No more contemplating. Instead, queen mating.
And queen e8 actually blitzed out. So either Magnus is still somewhat steamed up, or he used the time Sergei spent on thinking here very productively. I'm wondering about queen g4 though. I wouldn't want to allow queen g6, but maybe black just plays h5 and then queen g6.
Play h5 for sure.
But I still sort of like putting my queen on h3 and saying it makes it harder for you to... Okay. Actually, g5 on the previous move may have been a very decent idea, like
interesting,
illustrating to me just how poorly I positioned my queen here.
That is a very strong move. I don't know, g4, but it feels highly artificial, does it not?
No. This is probably wrong. This is probably very, very wrong. No, one thing you can say about the e5 f4 pawn feast in the center is that if black actually manages to get something rolling on the king side, it will not be that easy to stop. White needs to come up with a definite plan here.
Not sure about this knight e4. Knight f3 felt much tighter in the grand scheme of things, because then you have this.
But once again, maybe Sergei wasn't sure something like the immediate g5 doesn't happen. Like if we look back at this for a second, like knight g2, g5.
Whoa.
And
given Carlsen's mood, very possible. But
yeah, but here probably rook e1 followed by something might g4 probably. White just goes knight h2 or something and says, you are opening up files for me, not for yourself, and you will regret all these liberties you're taking. Yeah, knight e4 was I really liked the setup where you don't close the e file for yourself and you play for a much faster g4 break. It appeared a lot more natural to me.
Well, now it's anybody's guess who's better and why, what the plans are. It feels like black has more plans. He has this g5, he has this queen g6, knight h4. He has this a5 resource.
Yeah, I think a5
isn't obvious what goes where. Right?
I think a5 will be flicked in at some point to make white think about that as well. Mainly, I think for that reason, to just keep Sergei on his toes, not allow bishop b3 followed by a4, which will probably force black to keep something on the a file.
Stakes is high. I'm still at a loss for words. And if as a commentator I'm at a loss for words, imagine the players who 10 minutes is not a lot of time. You can go to the bathroom, you maybe check in with your, not sure what the rules are, if they have trainers on site giving them advice between games.
I think, I mean, if my experiences, let's say, for during the World Cup are any guide, you should be, they are allowed to speak to their people in between games. It would be very hard to explain why they wouldn't be, to be honest. You obviously get rechecked for metal once you leave the playing area to speak to them, and then in return you get once again patted down, but apart from that. Bishop b3 played, you can start with queen g6, because that probably forces white, and somebody in chat called this a lol plan of king h1, rook g1. It's not really all that lol, because you need to control your king side, you need to make sure you don't get mated.
Checkmate does end the game.
Yeah. I think securing the king side against anything immediate is a very, very decent idea. Also, maybe if white stabilizes, he can with the rook on g1 start thinking about playing g3 later in the game and opening up something on the king side for himself. But for the time being, queen g6 hasn't been played yet, Magnus is considering his options here.
a5 being his other option.
Yeah, I think it's between queen g6 and a5. You can maybe make an argument for playing g5 before playing queen g6, but once again, it's just such a huge commitment. Yeah, you're saying they're
really committing to giving
like even the plan of very simply playing queen e2 and bishop d1, maybe not immediately, maybe including a4 first to make sure that you have this on the board, and then controlling the black advance by this plan might be quite decent. No, I think g5 is not really something Magnus will do here. I just wanted to mention potential ideas, but I think it's highly unlikely.
Magnus. He might be steaming a little bit, but he still has his classical instincts. It's like they used to say, well, about many people, I guess, but his hand won't allow him to play that.
Yeah, queen g6 and f3.
Interesting. Fighting against this idea of knight h4, f3.
No, of these two options, I actually preferred king h1, rook g1 quite a bit. Because now you constantly have to worry about this knight landing on e3, and a5 gains in strength a great deal, I think, because the bishop on c1 might get overloaded. No, this is This is wasn't a decision that wasn't forced, and Sergei played it really fast. Obviously, Queen G6 was expected, but I still think King H1, Rook G1 was the way to go there. Invite Black to overextend on the king side for the time being. And
it makes it also a bit harder to activate your own queen. And the same wasn't easy anyway, but there were lines at least where you fight for this diagonal and so on. Well, after f3, it doesn't really have anywhere to go, or well, anywhere active to go.
No, this is it does feel that with a pawn on f3, Black really shouldn't be in trouble, because any kind of opening of the position will now be a lot easier to handle with Black, because yeah, knight e3 will be something Black needs to control.
Having said all that, this bishop still does nothing.
Yeah.
You would like to have it here, but I don't see how you can manufacture that.
Yeah, only by mastering the art of teleportation, I think. Yeah, because you're never playing c6 because that rejuvenating the bishop on b3 is not something you should do here.
Ooh, that was close.
I quite like a5. I think this is now the time to start playing on both flanks. Ask White a question what he wants to do with his structure. Like if he wants to take on a5 or play bishop d2.
I don't think he wants to take, right? You want to keep the tension, I guess. It's complicated. Can we checkmate, by the way? Like, put the bishop here and checkmate? It's not gonna happen, right? Maybe I need to distract.
It's not ridiculous, actually. I was about to say this is never going to happen, but it's not that ridiculous. I'm not sure this is how Magnus generally plays chess, but when forced to, he is very, very capable of playing directly for mate as well. So.
Well, he's not forced to here, but since his bishop doesn't do all that much anyway, might as well use it to creepily stare at the g3 square. And I might have some plans with knight f6, where it takes bishop g3, or I'm not quite sure how to
even knight f6 takes on e4 and then knight e3, and if that pawn survives, you can support it from g5, and it will be or f2 actually, yeah. And it will be a huge torn in White's side.
Line.
Like even here, like, you can snap this and go knight e3, and yeah, this is going to be a bit of an issue for White.
Not a forced line.
No, not at all. But just an illustration. And bishop h4 has
for
been played.
He has good instinct, this Carlsen. Like, took him a while to find my move, but eventually he got there.
Yeah, and once again shows definite intent.
Cruel intentions.
Great movie.
Who doesn't love Cruel Intentions? We're starring the likes of Ryan Philippi, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Reese Witherspoon.
And other people.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And Leonard Hofstadter's mom. It's true.
Yeah. Based on, and I will mispronounce this horribly, Chodorla de Laclos' timeless masterpiece, Liaison Dangereuse, or something. And we should probably wrap this up because there is a World Championship match going on. And
in German it is Gefährliche Liebschaften.
Yeah, I'm not going to touch that with a barge pole, no.
People are aware that Sarah Michelle Gellar also played Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Seriously.
People love it when there's a very tense position and I start talking about Buffy. That's why I'm so popular.
A4 played, which is very understandable because
he wants to.
Mainly, I think he wants to distract Black from what Black is doing on the king side, because what Black is doing on the king side is potentially very, very dangerous.
This is what you're doing, right?
Yeah, knight f6 is what you're doing probably, and now White already has to make an executive decision about this idea of knight e4, knight e3. Whether he is very worried about it, slightly worried about it, not worried about it at all options are open.
Or maybe you decide you're quite worried about it, but there's nothing you can do about it, and therefore you roll with it. Knight f6 on the board. Carlsen is making a statement he's not all that concerned about. subtleties on the queen side here. He's much more interested
he says mate is what I'm after here, and I believe I can find some. It's well, with the pawn on f3, I can definitely get behind this idea. Which is why, yeah, once again I want to restate that king h1, rook g1 was not a stupid idea at all. Because if you imagine like king h1, bishop h4, g3 no longer really is an idea at all, because white can always take with the f pawn, knight h4, rook g1, and you run out of threats really.
One day you might
and especially
turn the table.
Yeah, especially with the knight on h4, g3 does become an option later in the game, and f3 was a very committal decision, which I felt wasn't really forced by circumstances.
I thought you were going to say Sergei, but then you went Constances. I try. Is this the line we looked at? Oh, no.
Not exactly. Rook a2 is a useful move, and
because now if takes.
Yeah, with the rook on a2 there will be g3 here
because
because the rook will join the defense. Yeah, this is an important detail. So rook a2 probably is a decent starting point for white. And here, even your sort of caveman plan of queen h5, bishop g3 is actually very serious.
Doesn't deliver mate after h3, but that's another achievement for black.
Yeah, if the bishop gets to g3 and stays alive, and white starts is forced to play around it, so to speak, this is not a comfortable situation, because it's just there being incredibly uncomfortable and demanding attention.
Queen e2 on the board.
Queen e2 played, and
That's
here.
Maybe preparing for this, because now you can take with the... no, you can just take with the pawn and
no, he controlled knight e3, but once again, queen h5 followed by bishop g3 is
something to g3.
Yeah, something to g3.
Let's find some checkmate. Bishop d2 takes, jump, and
this wins.
This is the end.
And apparently Magnus, I don't know if we should once again trust chat on this, but yeah, a5 play.
Now,
which is also a very serious option, because it feels like with the bishop steal on c1, black probably will be able to liquidate the entire queen side, and then he will be the only one playing. Probably a pair of rooks will actually come off. It's very likely that white takes on a5, rook a5, and makes some kind of a move like bishop d2 or rook a2. And then you take on a4, and the whole queen side disappeared, which I think is very much in black's favor, because he no longer has to worry about anything, and he is the side. Here maybe you can even take on d5, it's unclear, but even if this doesn't exist as an option, you can now play something like rook b8 and claim that you're better on every side of the board.
Here you might have to worry about some takes bishop d7 operation all of a sudden.
Yeah, but
it's a bit random, but a5, very interesting, showing, what do you call this, court vision?
Yeah.
Because I would have been very focused on this side of the board, but he plays.
No, he is very, very aware of everything that's been going on the board. And also 16 minutes against 10, so this is still not a horrible situation time-wise that Sergei finds himself in. But it's something he will now have to start paying attention to.
Yeah, and a lot of calculating to do. Anyway, why can't I grab pawn? That's what I was curious about.
Let's check, A, B, A, B.
Because this square is a problem.
Yeah, but maybe you can just ignore it and claim this is not where the knight was going anyway, like 94. On queen d1 or queen b2, I don't know where, b2 probably. But even if I'm forced to just take on b5, which is kind of boring, it's still fine for black.
These pawns aren't the prettiest.
Yeah, and your king on g1 is still not entirely safe at all. I mean, the knight will just return to f5. It will take black 2 moves, but it will return to f5, and then once again you'll have to watch for knight e3 in every single position.
Yeah, still, I preferred the position with the caveman approach, I believe.
Don't blame you, but this is also very clear.
Go here, take, go here, checkmate.
Yep. Was very much a plan, but Magnus continues playing a sort of a larger game.
These sophisticated, world-class players playing all over the board for small details. Go caveman.
Yeah, we'll see. Sergei has a number of options here. He can go for mass simplifications of some kind on the queen side, or he can maybe go for the line we described, where he takes on b5, takes on b4, and gives black the option of picking the b5 pawn for the 2 tempi, because the knight really doesn't belong on b5. Lots of things he can do here. But second very interesting game in a row. Not that the first one wasn't interesting, but the first one became very safe for both sides almost immediately out of the opening. So yeah, wasn't a large amount of excitement there. But the next two, yeah, no one I think can complain about the lack of action.
Peter, no one? What does he have to do with it?
It's a lot harder to pull this joke off when it's not spelled incorrectly.
Yeah.
Also, doing this to me when I was the one who taught you about the miracles of Peter No One is...
I'm willing to rip off whatever you tell me pretty much instantly. Except for the chess part there, I don't really pay that much attention, so you're safe there. But the references, I'm like a sponge. So let's figure this out. I think last time I went bishop d2.
Machine insists this is a lot stronger, but this already is kind of difficult to understand. Apparently, you need to have queen a2 in order to meet knight takes d5. So that black doesn't have c7, c6. But that is very deep. Yeah, that is very, very deep.
Too subtle.
Forcing queen f7, and now white has some compensation after bishop b3, c6. But black still actually ends up a pawn up, so... Yeah, this is still... Yeah, you can't really play like this with white, I think.
And ab5 on the board.
ab5 played. This was...
I like this decision.
Yeah. This was always going to be one of the likelier options for white. And I think we are headed towards the position we described. He will take on b4. Probably knight d4. I mean, other moves are also possible, but this is by far the most obvious one. Queen b2, and here he will probably look for something stronger, but end up settling on knight takes b5. Once again,
you feels defendable to me.
Yeah, you can try something like knight e4, bishop g3 here as well.
Ah, interesting. Now we're talking. Here?
Yeah. But I guess white just goes bishop c4 and h3 and says, yes, you planted it on g3, but now you don't have pieces to exploit it.
Right.
And I keep my b5 pawn, at least for the time being, and yeah, that's...
Just to explain, this pawn...
This probably is still incredibly dangerous for white, maybe just unplayable. I wasn't sure, I didn't check, but it does feel like you're running very serious risks here.
But here,
yeah, but this
this
feels manageable. Because black is still some way away from getting anywhere on the king's side, yeah.
This will take forever, and white will make something happen.
Yeah. Sergei is still thinking after c takes b4. I wonder if something like bishop d2 or bishop b2 is...
This could make a lot of sense, right?
But it allows knight e3. I mean, it's not a move you make easily, because it feels like you're allowing this knight incursion, which kind of feels scary. It might not objectively be scary, but it feels very scary. And yeah, I don't know how easy this will be to play.
Karjakin, once again...
Down to 5 minutes and 30 seconds, according to our clock, against 16 for Magnus. So this continues the same sort of narrative as in the second game. First game, it wasn't really an issue, but in the second game, Magnus played the first part of the game very confidently, and Sergei soon found himself in horrible time trouble.
But did his thing. It did not break.
Yeah.
What other options are there? To my mind, rook a8, cb is still logical, but maybe inviting this, and you're not even a pawn up.
Bishop d2 played, apparently.
d2, yeah, that also makes sense, keeping an eye on this.
Yeah.
And now it's Mr. Magnus with the choice.
Yeah.
Takes looks like the obvious move.
Takes looks, very normal, but...
Then you have to decide how many rooks you want and where and what.
Yeah. No, this is quite good for black, but maybe his advantage is not as large as you would have thought. But once again, it all stems from this decision to play f3 very early, which I think was...
to some extent, knight e4 felt... Ah, no, sorry, not this knight e4, the other knight e4.
The other knight e4, yeah.
Not sure.
It did feel like you're sort of cutting off your own play there by not playing for the sharpest plan with d4 immediately.
Now Carlsen's comfortable, but the position remains very sharp strategically, right? It's not like white doesn't have any trumps.
No, but also with him with him playing bishop d2 and not bishop b2, c takes b4 is not threatened. So you can make a case for some kind of a waiting move, because yeah, c4, knight d4 will be uncomfortable. So there's queen e8, there's also queen h5, returning to the previous plan and saying, okay, make a move here.
Finally.
Yeah, and Magnus has, plenty of time to consider, and he will, I think he should probably use some of it here, because it's an important position. And he has taken on c3, bishop c3, and
there really is no bigger jinx than you. Right? The very second you say he should use some of his time,
he did spend some time on that decision.
I'm just trolling.
Not a lot of time, though. You're right.
Bishop c3 on the board.
And this probably was played with the idea of playing knight e3. Otherwise, I think you
jump.
You don't really do that. But that feels like you're giving white additional options, because after the rook goes, you have to watch out for, let's say, b6, knight d6 ideas even.
Also. And with his knight on e3, there's no longer any checkmates with knight g3.
Yeah,
well, this is on the board.
Rook fc1 played, and
once again, Magnus, he does this thing which, okay, doesn't matter so much, but he's making Sergei play only moves, which is much, much easier in time trial, right? Yeah. Bishop takes c3, rook fc1, you can more or less blitz out.
Yep. He is still doing quite well, but in practical terms, against someone who is beginning to fall seriously behind on the clock, giving your opponent as many decisions as possible is generally considered to be the sensible strategy in these cases.
Yeah. Well, here he's the one with the decisions, and no, this is not an obvious decision. What are you doing here? Go here?
Rook b8 probably, but yeah, you need to start calculating stuff now. For instance, the machine suggests bishop takes e5 is now playable, which is very easy to miss. And suddenly, if you take the bishop, you just lose, because these pawns just, they go through.
That's a nasty little shot. Wow.
You can still play rook takes b5, and perhaps nothing really horrible
has
happened to do.
Exchange your e5 pawn for.
But that is not a development you want to see, because that was very, very important. White had bishop on c3, which was going nowhere, and then suddenly it's alive again.
Very alive. Carlsen taking his time now.
Yeah, I think maybe he spotted this, because otherwise you play rook a b8, it looks very natural. It attacks the b5 pawn, and it's not that easy to protect normally. Sorry, but yeah, I think he probably spotted the tactic, and he is now revising his expectations here.
Curbing his enthusiasm a little bit?
Possibly, yeah.
It's very double-edged, because in general you don't want to take here. And bishop takes, this rook instantly jumps to life.
No,
you have to switch to sort of defense.
In particular, by driving the rook from f1 to c1, Magnus created a situation where, in many cases, white creates immediate counterplay, which was something that really wasn't there. If you look at the position after bishop d2 in particular, before both bishop takes c3 and knight e3, you don't really see an active move for white. C takes b4 doesn't really qualify, because it just drives the knight to g4, and it's very
this was much stronger.
Yeah, it was very awkward to meet for white, and yeah.
Rook a1, rook a1.
Rook a1 played, and now I think maybe the queen needs to start getting rerouted towards the queen side, because you probably aren't giving any mate on the king side.
That's a sad development for black.
Yeah, but I mean, once again, I suspect maybe bishop takes e5 is still a move you need to consider in this position. So I'm not sure how strong it is here, but queen e8 played, yeah.
Feels like, I'm not sure, the tables have turned, but Karjakin is very much back in the game. Or
Sure.
He was never out of the game, but he's not.
And
worse
also,
in practical
very
terms.
noticeably, we mentioned that he had 5 minutes left about 5 moves ago. He still has 5 minutes left, whereas Magnus burned 5 minutes of his time advantage and also made life easier for white by trading some pieces and allowing for some simple moves to be made. So
Yeah, same scenario in some ways, like in game number 2.
yeah,
This is the script. Carlsen is stronger in the early middle game, but you need to get the job done.
Bishop c4 played by Sergei, also a very natural move. Yeah,
Stabilizing.
protecting your entire structure. Black probably throws in king h8 somewhere to sidestep all these pins, maybe hint that he will take on d5 if white continues ignoring it. Knight takes d5 might actually become a
worried
move.
about this, just to break it up? I understand it could cost me a pawn. I'm not sure how serious it is.
I don't know, let's look at knight e4, let's say d4, cb6.
And something.
Yeah, your pieces are somewhat misplaced here, and actually even bishop d2, bishop takes e3 might become a serious problem. And yeah, white is very stable here with the bishop on c6 plugging everything up on the queen side. Yeah, this is a very King's Indian type idea from white. Trade off the good squares, leave yourself with this monster light squared bishop, and then play. Black is probably fine still, but white also probably feels very safe about this.
Very tense, very tense. King h8 on the board. Yeah, b6 does look like a move. Let's check other options. The wise computer gives this move, which is above my pay grade. bc, queen c7, and we've achieved something apparently.
Yeah, because it's not that comfortable for white to just keep his stuff coordinated. Knight takes e4 might actually force you to take with the f pawn, which is not something you want to do, because then black will once again have very serious initiative on the king side. So queen b8 probably is quite strong after b6, and it's not impossible to find, because assessing the position after knight e4, d4, cb6 is not really that difficult. No. You immediately see that you've traded off most of your strategic advantages.
Well, b6 obviously not forced, and probably wrong, but it's a very natural move to.
Yeah, it's an idea. It's an idea you definitely need to explore. But also, this is finally we're back to what we were sort of advocating for Magnus in this game.
Make moves.
Yeah, he makes a move which creates an idea and also gives white a wide variety of options on how to deal with this idea. And for somebody who has 5 minutes left, it's not that comfortable. It's a lot less comfortable than when you're making moves which you know you have to make.
Oh. Still extremely unbalanced, and I feel a lot is riding on this bishop if it becomes a contributor in whatever, some kingside attack, or makes a surprising re-entry.
Let's say if you discuss the position after knight f6, you probably take with the
GF, yeah,
I think.
My King's Indian instincts are
Bishop d2. No, I was wondering with bishop d2, but the knight actually goes via the c2 square or f5 square. Yeah, it goes to d4, and then black starts really rolling on the king side. So you cannot really play this here. Opening up the g file just makes life so much simpler for black.
Big decision for Mr. Karjakin.
Yeah, 11 against 3 on the clock in favor of Carlsen, and this is still a very, very complicated position. So this is a large advantage, time-wise.
This is another defensive move covering this.
But you can play queen g6 back, and at some point you probably need to throw in h7, h6 just to make sure you don't have to worry about the back rank. And then you might... knight takes f6
played. Wow, I'm very curious if he's going to go gf, which looks like the move you want to play.
No, I think he has to. I think it's by far the most testing move. And once again, he's taken with the bishop. Okay, we should just maybe stop speaking. Might be a good idea.
Let's have a moment of silence. But why doesn't he go gf? It looked so strong.
I don't really understand. It did look very, very promising, and especially when you're playing against somebody who is not really in control.
Nice move, this rook a3, by the way.
Yeah, you play something like h6 here, I guess. You really need to get this over with. But like even bishop e1, f2, for instance, a transfer to... You start threatening bishop takes e3 in some positions. Also, it's a good diagonal for the bishop to be on.
Yeah, it's tough for black to attack too much, right? It looks like the white position now.
Yeah, but why wouldn't you?
this
Why
pawn,
wouldn't
knight
you?
pawn.
Why wouldn't you open the G file?
That's a bit of a mystery, yeah. Maybe sometimes you just don't consider a move like that on positional grounds. Or he missed knight c2, it's also possible.
But even let's say after knight f5, just how pleasant is this for white?
No, I agree.
Rook g8, queen h5. You just forget about the queen side and now seriously go for the mating attack. And
This dude is a bit of a spectator on the king side, so it looked very good.
it really is a bit of a mystifying decision from the world champion.
Rook a3 on the board, and Karjakin is back doing what he does best. Not, giving an inch in a slightly awkward but defendable position.
Yeah, I'm sort of wondering about e5, e4, but you just don't play like that. There are too few pieces remaining, and there's also bishop f6, bishop g7, which is probably...
Maybe
takes queen e5, that was what
I see.
I'm not claiming I'm winning by force, but I want to occupy the dark squares, maybe get the a file under control. But yeah, even here, counterplay against the c7 pawn might really be in time for white.
Interesting idea.
No, it's a worthy idea positionally, but I'm not sure if it's fast enough, and white probably gets things under control
And
here.
it's been played.
Okay. Okay, so we got that right somehow after not getting right many things which we felt we should.
Going for it. Let's check the options. DE is what we just saw. Yeah, it's been played.
Yeah, DE has been played.
Takes,
takes, queen e5 must be the idea, otherwise I don't really see what he's doing. And yeah, black probably isn't risking anything with his complete dark square dominance, but after queen d2, rook a8, and once again, you're probably missing this this one tempo to safeguard your king, because after rook a8, I think bishop a2 might be the only good move white has. Rook c1 might also be playable though. And Sergei played rook c1 immediately, which I think
a difference
gives black slightly more space here, because he can start with queen d4. It's a useful move. It takes up more squares. But Magnus blitzes out rook a8.
Naturally enough. And
h3. I'm not sure about h3. This really does give black a lot of time, but maybe it's just fine, because you control the f1 square. This is very important. Rook a1, you just take, you play king h2. And the bishop on c4 is very important here, because there's no way to get the knight to f1 and g3, which would win. Black is still never ever worse here, despite being a pawn down, because he's just so completely in control of the dark squares. But I don't think you win this with black.
See what Carlsen does. You can also start with h6. I'm guessing.
Sure. No,
white will go king h2. He has useful moves. No?
Yeah, black is very safe here. I don't think white. You really need to miss something very large here for white to start playing for a win. But as far as keeping things under control goes, I think white should be able to do that with the limited material available.
Can you go for some madness like this, or is this asking for it? Well, here blunder queen d3, queen c3, right?
Yeah, it feels like this probably will not be fast enough.
Yeah.
Going completely insane might not be a great idea.
I keep going back and forth on that topic.
Time
very tense once again.
Time situation is around 8 minutes against around 2.5 for Sergei, and h6 played. But yeah,
king h2 is a move you can more or less blitz out.
Or queen d2, which is also reasonably safe. Like queen d2 followed by bishop e2. Yeah, getting finally some dark squares under control.
King h2 played.
Yep.
This will be hard to break down. Like even if you do nothing, quote unquote, with a move like this, black looks comfortable.
No,
how do you make progress?
As mentioned, black is never really
queen d4 play.
Never really in any danger, but neither is he really making any progress here, I feel.
We shall see. I have a feeling it's still quite unpleasant for white to defend this.
Yeah, it's easier to play with black. You just try to create small threats somewhere, try to ask some questions. But in general, the knight on e3 looks fantastic, but in order to make progress, you need for it to have squares. Because I don't think your rook ever lands on the second. I mean, you win if the rook goes to a2 and cannot be taken, but... Yeah, apparently here white can switch to counter-attack and you...
Aggression.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, e5 followed by b6 apparently is very strong.
Good luck.
Yeah, you're not going to find this because it actually sacrifices a queen.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is some prime computer stuff. This is a line we are reading on our monitor, which does win for white, but none of these moves is very easy to find.
No, that's what I'm saying. Over the board, like, okay, you look for tricks as white, but here I'd get extremely scared.
Queen e1 played.
e1 played, okay.
Queen b2, rook a2 is allowed, but I guess and knight c4, queen b4 is what we should explain. He didn't blunder the piece. He sees all these little tactics very, very well, Sergei. But after queen b2, he will probably have to play bishop f1. I guess queen g1 looks horrible. And now we go rook a2, rook b1.
Looks very active at the very least.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he allowed all this, which is why I was advocating.
And now you go back here and we
Yeah,
conquered. The
yeah.
second
I'm not sure why he gave up the second. Now I feel like if Magnus plays queen b2, rook a2, which I think he should, playing this position for white will become a lot harder.
Queen b2, bishop
Yeah,
f1.
bishop f1 played. Now after rook a2, I guess he thought rook b1 is fine, but there's a very large issue here that driving this rook away after, let's say, queen f6 will be a major problem.
Rook a2 played.
Yeah, apart from rook b1, you don't really have. Yeah, you lose if you don't play rook b1. You need to stop
Knight
knight
g2,
takes g2.
massive threat. So
Yeah.